Ich bin mehrfach darum gebeten worden, noch mehr vom Credo Mutwa zu übersetzen. Das habe ich nun gemacht. Der Übersicht halber habe ich sämtliche Videos von ihm hintereinander gesetzt und am Schluss findet ihr dann den neuen Teil. Bei dieser Überschrift handelt es sich nicht um ein Clickbait. Laut David Icke hat sich das, was ich in der Überschrift beschreibe, tatsächlich so zugetragen. Aber hört selbst.
I remember a great friend of mine, Credo Mutwa, the Zulu shaman who's in his 80s now. The man's extraordinary, an incredible library of knowledge of African history and esoterics and all the rest of it. And he did some throwing the bones, as they say, in Africa, but it's like tarot cards or rune stones, that sort of stuff, which he's very skilled in. And he did it for me once when I was with him. I'm going to see him again soon. And he said, you know, they've tried to kill you many times. He said, but they can't do it. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But I realized why they can't do it. Because if they can't get to me energetically, they can't get to me physically. They can't do it. Wow. And it's the same with anybody that reaches a certain vibrational state. They can't.
Im zweiten Teil dieses Videos seht ihr eine jüngere Version von David Icke, damals im Jahr 1999, der sich anschickt, den Schamanen, seinen inzwischen guten Freund, zu besuchen.
Hello and welcome to Africa, this enormous and astonishing continent. South Africa, to be more precise, just a short drive outside Johannesburg. And I'm here to talk to a remarkable man, Credo Mutwa. When I first came to South Africa about 18 months ago, within 2 or 3 days I was introduced to Credo Mutwa. I'd never heard of him at the time, but from the moment I met him, I didn't stop listening and he didn't stop talking for at least 5 hours. And within the first few minutes I realized I wasn't just in the presence here of a man of great knowledge, and he's certainly that. I was in the presence of a genius, a unique human being. And Credo Mutwa is without doubt the most incredible man it has been my honor to meet. Credo is what some people around the world call a shaman, and some deeply, deeply ignorant people call a witch doctor. And to give him his official title, he's a Sanusi in the Zulu nation. Sanusi is the carrier, the keeper of the ancient knowledge of so much, including the ancient knowledge of history of Africa, where all this came from, where the people came from, what the truth of history is, instead of the largely nonsensical version of history that we get through the universities and the schools from very, very well-educated professors who know. There are only 2 Sanusis left in South Africa. Credo is one. And that's terrifying, because it means the true version of the history of this continent is dying.
In Kürze plane ich euch einige Analytics zu zeigen, aber vorher möchte ich gerne eine kleine Umfrage starten. Und zwar mit der Frage, was denkt ihr? Schauen mehr Männer oder mehr Frauen meinen Kanal? Ihr könnt es rechts oben anklicken. Wir beginnen mit einer seltsamen Geschichte, einer verrückten Geschichte, würdet ihr denken. Aber es ist eine Geschichte, die sich im Laufe seines Lebens und seines Lernens über diesen Kontinent immer wieder bestätigt hat. Über die Jahre hinweg, als ich versuchte aufzudecken, wie die Welt von wenigen Menschen kontrolliert wird, was tatsächlich so ist und wer diese Leute sind, kristallisierte es sich heraus, so bizarr es sich auch anhören mag, dass eine Reptilienrasse von einer anderen Welt sich in der Vorzeit mit der Menschheit gekreuzt hat. Und sie erschufen gemischte, durch Kreuzung gezüchtete Blutlinien. Es gibt Hinweise darauf im Alten Testament und in sehr vielen alten Schriften. Das Alte Testament spricht von den Söhnen Gottes, aber im Original heißt es die Söhne der Götter. Sie kreuzten sich mit den Töchtern der Menschen und erschufen die Hybridenrasse, die Nephilim.
These gods were the literal gods of the ancient people. And they used to sacrifice people literally to the gods. And these crossbreed bloodlines, as ancient accounts tell around the world, were put into the positions of ruling royal power in the ancient world. And then, as is happening today, when you do the genealogy of the ruling families and the ruling positions of power in the world, be they the 42 presidents of the United States up to Bill Clinton, be they the British royal family, be the aristocracy of Europe, any of these key ruling elites, the top of the banking system, the top of the global business system, you hit the family lines which go back to these same ruling lines of the ancient world, royal lines, that the ancient accounts say were the crossbreeds between humanity and these reptilian gods. In other words, a reptilian extraterrestrial race has been controlling planet Earth for thousands of years to this day and putting its genetic compatible bloodlines into the positions of power as presidents, prime ministers, banking leaders, business leaders, etc. And this explains so many things, where we get the divine right of kings from, the divine right to rule because of the bloodline, the genetics. Why these ruling families of the aristocracy and the royal families have always incessantly interbred with each other, just as the Eastern establishment families of the United States do, that produce so many presidents and banking leaders and administrators of government in the United States. And astonishingly, bizarre as I keep saying, and seemingly ridiculous as this story may be from our conditioned perspective of life and reality, when I started talking to Credo Mutwa from his African experience and knowledge of the most staggering depths and variety, he tells exactly the same story that I have uncovered around the world, exactly in great detail.
People investigating UFO activity have been pointing out for decades and decades the fact that this knowledge of unexplainable craft has been suppressed systematically by the authorities, and it goes deeper than that. It's clear they've actually found non-human entities a number of times. Credo Mutwa, the Zulu shaman, told me that years and years ago that they found what are called grey aliens in the bush, and he said it's amazing, basically, how quickly military vehicles turn up when they're found, take them away. And so there's a whole story, a whole world behind, oh, I'm for Trump, I'm against Trump. Oh, what do you think of that? What do you think of this? Oh, seeing what's on the... Behind all that, diverting attention, this real stuff is going on. And it says here that the servicemen in each case were convinced that what they saw was vastly more technologically advanced than anything in the US or foreign arsenals.
Yeah.
David Icke sagt hier, dass Credo Mutwa genau das bis ins Detail bestätigt, was David Icke in seinen Büchern schon geschrieben hat. Und wenn man möchte, dass Afrika und die Welt wieder frei werden, dann soll man genau zuhören, was Credo Mutwa zu sagen hat.
Africa and the world is ever going to be free, and we are, then they have to listen to this man, and they have to listen now.
My teacher said, look, how far are you willing to go in order to become one of us? I said, I am willing to go anywhere. He looked at me and he said, listen, educated man, we are tired of people like you. White men come amongst us to milk our minds and then to kill us. We want to be sure that we can trust you.
Die Initiationsriten für Schamanen in Afrika sind ziemlich heftig. Ich möchte euch nur vorwarnen vor dem, was nun kommt. Das ist nichts für zarte Gemüter.
I am willing to do anything. He said, are you? I said, yes. And then they went into a graveyard, and from there they removed the hand of a corpse, dead 2 days, and they brought it and they challenged me to cook it and eat it. I did so. And these were the peoples who first told me about a race of highly intelligent beings which they called the Chitahuri, the talkers, a race of creatures which look like reptiles.
Hallo, nachdem ich nun einige andere Themen behandelt habe, geht es wie versprochen weiter mit Credo Mutwa. Es wäre hilfreich, wenn ihr, bevor ihr dieses Video anschaut, euch das eingeblendete Video noch anseht mit dem Namen David Icke, Credo Mutwa, Aliens, Reptiloide im afrikanischen Busch.
A race of creatures which look like reptiles, who have ruled the world for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Through this dreadful act, I was able to gain knowledge which was denied to even the highest sangomas, because they would not go through the ritual I went to. This is how secret knowledge is protected in Africa.
Why, Credo, have you chosen to reveal this knowledge now to a much, much wider audience?
Mr. David, please, Africa is dying. Africa, is being murdered. And we are sitting like bloody fools. And we don't realize what's being done to our people. I have proof that can stand in any true court of law that the disease called AIDS is a man-made disease. And this disease is going to kill 3/4 of South Africa's black people within the next 10 years. There are wars in Africa which make no sense to me as a black man. In Africa, we find wars where a group of rebels challenges a government and tries to fight against it. And then these wars end in the total destruction of that particular country, where neither the rebels nor the government wins anymore. And why? Because you find this force of rebels facing the government, and all of a sudden the rebel army splits into little factions which start fighting each other and not the real enemy. And soon it becomes a situation where everybody is fighting everybody else and the whole thing is getting nowhere. I say that these wars which are destroying Africa this way are orchestrated by forces from outside Africa.
Hallo, bei diesem Video bin ich nun einmal ganz anders vorgegangen. Und zwar habe ich im ersten Teil das Originalvideo so belassen, wie es ist, und nur die Übersetzung reingeschrieben. Und im zweiten Teil habe ich ein eigenes Video zusammengebastelt und den Text aufgesprochen. Ihr könnt euch nun aussuchen, was euch lieber ist, oder auch beides nacheinander anschauen und anhören. Ich möchte euch noch darauf hinweisen, dass unten ein Link ist mit dem neuesten Buch von David Icke, das ihr dort bestellen könnt, oder auch etwas anderes, wenn ihr möchtet. Und nun wünsche ich viel Spaß mit dem neuen Video.
So let's start looking then at the force that is the common theme through all this history to the present day that's been manipulating these highly malevolent, highly destructive situations. My own research around the world has certainly focused in on the fact that there is a force not of this world, shall we say, that is the common theme. What is your experience and your knowledge of an extraterrestrial involvement in the history of Africa?
One of the most secret stories that was revealed to me, sir, is about these beings. This story was revealed to me first in Barotsident, then in the country today called Rwanda, once known as Rwanda Urundi. Then I learned about this story at that time on the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro. This is the story, a story you find throughout Africa. There was once a time when the blue sky was invisible, when the whole world was covered with mist, when you could not see the sun as it is now, you only saw it as a splash of white light moving slowly across the sky. At that time, there was an eternal drizzle every day of the year. At that time, people could not see the stars. People only saw the trees growing, trees which were very, very big. There was no desert at that time, only jungle everywhere where you went. At that time, sir, people were what we call in Zulu, ngubili. A human being was both male and female in one body. And out of the sky, one day came terrible objects. They were like gigantic bows made of huge gleaming gold. They were shaped like bows without strings, and they were bigger than the biggest mountains. They came out of the sky bringing great noise, black smoke, and fire with them. And out of those huge objects came them. At that time, sir, human beings could not speak. We had no gift of language at that time. And people had, however, great mental power. A man would go into the bush and, using the power of his mind, actually call out an animal which he wanted to hunt and kill for his children. And the animal would appear and kneel down before the man, and the man would kill the animal and take it home.
Lass uns nun damit beginnen, uns mit der Macht zu beschäftigen, die ein verbreitetes Thema ist in der Geschichte bis zum heutigen Tag, die äußerst bösartig und zerstörerisch, manipulatorisch am Werke war und ist. Meine eigenen Nachforschungen in der ganzen Welt zeigten schlussendlich, dass es eine Macht gibt, die nicht von dieser Welt ist, so könnte man es ausdrücken. Das ist das gemeinschaftliche Thema. Was sind deine Erfahrungen? Was weißt du über außerirdische Verstrickungen in der afrikanischen Geschichte? Eine der geheimsten Geschichten, die mir offenbart wurde, handelt von diesem Wesen. Diese Geschichte wurde mir zunächst in Barotseland offenbart, danach in einem Land, das man heute als Ruanda bezeichnet, früher bekannt als Ruanda-Urundi. Ich erfuhr zu der Zeit mehr über diese Geschichte im Vorgebirge des Kilimandscharo, das ist der höchste Berg Afrikas. Dies ist die Geschichte, eine Geschichte, die man überall in Afrika vorfindet. Es gab eine Zeit, als der blaue Himmel unsichtbar war, als die ganze Welt in Dunst eingehüllt war. Als man die Sonne nicht so sehen konnte, wie sie heute ist, man sah sie nur als Spritzer weißen Lichts, das sich langsam am Himmel bewegte. Zu der Zeit gab es einen unaufhörlichen Nieselregen an jedem Tag des Jahres. Zu der Zeit konnten die Menschen die Sterne nicht sehen. Sie sahen nur die Bäume wachsen, Bäume, die sehr, sehr groß waren. Es gab keine Wüste zu der Zeit, nur Dschungel, überall, wohin man auch ging. Zu jener Zeit waren die Menschen, wie wir es in Zulu nennen, Ngobili. Ein Menschenwesen war männlich und weiblich in einem Körper. Eines Tages kamen schreckliche Objekte aus dem Himmel. Sie sahen wie riesige Kugeln aus, bestehend aus massigem, glänzendem Gold. Sie waren wie Kugeln ohne Fäden ausgestaltet und sie waren größer als die größten Berge. Sie kamen mit großem Lärm, schwarzem Rauch und Feuer aus dem Himmel heraus. Und aus diesen großen Objekten kamen sie heraus. Zu der Zeit konnten die Menschen nicht sprechen. Es gab damals nicht das Geschenk der Sprache, jedoch besaßen die Menschen große mentale Macht. Ein Mann ging in den Busch und nutzte die Macht seines Geistes und rief tatsächlich nach einem Tier, das er für seine Kinder jagen und töten wollte. Und das Tier erschien und kniete vor dem Mann nieder, und der Mann tötete das Tier und nahm es mit nach Hause.
But when the Chitahuri arrived in Africa, they told our people that they were gods and that they were going to give us human beings great gifts on one condition. We had to worship them and accept them as our creators. Some told our people that they were our elder brothers and that this earth had produced them generations ago. And they said they had come back to the green womb of their mother and that they were going to make us into gods. What they did, they created a very strange pair of caves in the land. They dug 2 caves. In one cave was a green light, in another cave was a red light. And they drove human beings into these caves. And each human being had to choose which cave the human being wanted to go into. And those who went into the green cave came out as women. And those who went into the red cave came out as men. And then the talkers, the Chitahuri, told our people that now they were perfect. But the moment the first men saw the first women, a terrible row erupted. The women hated the men because they looked between their legs and they saw what they thought were snakes dangling between the legs of the men. And the men hated the women because they looked on their chests and they saw these big things. What they were, they did not know. And then the Chitahuri laughed. It was to them a very, very big joke. And then the Chitahuri said, if you serve us, you wretched little human beings, we are going to make you into gods. And the human beings agreed to serve the Chitahuri. And the Chitahuri gave human beings a second gift, the gift of language. People started talking with their tongues where they had talked with their minds before. And there was a big rubbish starting again, because this man did not know the language of that man. And when this man greeted that man, this man thought that he was being insulted, and so a lot of murder and culpable homicide started taking place all over the world. When our people were given language, they found to their horror that they had lost much of their mental powers. They had paid a terrible price. But the Chitahuri were now the masters of human beings. They made them, the human beings, to go into holes in the ground and to mine metal, gold, copper, tin, all kinds of metal the Chitahuri forced our people to mine.
You're saying exactly the same as I've come across. It's incredible confirmation that a reptilian race from another world has been behind the manipulation of humanity for a very, very long time. Now, what do these Chitahuri actually look like, the reptiles?
I'm not a good artist, sir.
You're better than me, that's for sure.
But this is how we believe the Chitahuri look